It's finally here, your wait is over. My name is Vivid, and over the past few weeks, I have spent over 50 hours attempting a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Violet with only new Pokemon. Every time a new generation releases, I love to run through the game for my first time with only the shiny new toys. And with Paldea being the first truly open world Pokemon experience, I knew this run was gonna be special. Yes, I know this video is pretty late because my entire family got sick just as the games were released, so let's not waste any time and just get into it. We start off this game with legitimate character customization, which is actually pretty dope for Pokemon. But then we're immediately put into the dweebiest possible uniform, and I don't think we can really change that. So this is our little nerd for the run. We cover some intro nonsense and are greeted by the headmaster of Pokewart's School of Battlecraft and Sandwich Artistry. Director Clavel ends up letting us pick our starter Pokemon, and I have to go with the grass cat here. I love cats, and grass type starters are historically my favorite, so Sprigatito is a home run for me. I name him Tommy, and as always, my nicknames will have a theme that it is up to you to guess, so if you know it, let me know in the comments down below. Before we get too far into this video, I want to say thank you to the sponsor of the video, which is me. Seriously, all I'm asking is that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, since we're on our way to 100K. Leave a like if you enjoy the video, and also go check out my second channel where I've been posting battling content. I will also be posting a tutorial very soon on how to edit the shiny odds, because that is the #1 question I've received on my channel, so go over there and preemptively subscribe. Okay, thanks, back to the video. I start off my journey by quickly battling and wiping the floor with our new rival Pneumonia. I know her name isn't pronounced that way, but when I battled her the first time, I had strep throat and an upper respiratory infection, so just give me this one. We're then introduced to the first area where we can actually catch Pokemon, so I snag a Palmy and name her Trini. We then fall off a cliff, but somehow are magically saved by our cell phone, and shortly after, we conveniently run into the main legendary Pokemon of the region and are forced to follow it through a cave. Upon exiting the cave, we run into Arvin, who has an attitude problem, and it's probably because he has daddy issues. He tells us he once owned Miraidon, but we murk him in a quick battle, and he just gives them to us with no pushback. So now we have the box legendary for the games just chilling with us, which is neat. Moving on to the next area, I catch this discolored Wooper and name him Ivan, and I love him. Before we can make our way to the school, which is the current goal, we have to fight Nemona once again, and this fight's sole purpose is to introduce the new terastallization mechanic, but she uses it on her Palmy, who can't even touch Ivan, and he's already learned Poison Tail, which is a great move for this early on, so we heck her up pretty easily. After gaining access to the main city of Mesagoza, we run into this girl who the game is just screaming at us is the awkward outcast stereotype, and she's being harassed by some Team Star goons. They're the quote-unquote evil team of this game. Thankfully, Nemona just gave us our very own Terra Orb, so we can crystallize our little Whoopie boy and give him a silly hat, which is somehow an insane power boost. I love Pokemon because it never makes any damn sense, but it's always great. So we mop the floor with Team Star and then do an unnecessary amount of story cutscenes at the school, and finally, we get to start our very own treasure hunt, which in this game is really just code for adventure and the main story of the game. So let's break it down real quick. We have 3 different story modes to complete. Victory Road, which is the standard gym challenge, Path of Legend, which is fighting Titan-sized Pokemon, and finally Starfall Street, which is going to the various Team Star bases to conquer each one. Now, I'm doing this run as a hardcore Nuzlocke, which means on top of standard Nuzlocke rules, I will also not be using items in battle outside of held items. I'm playing on set mode, and I will not overlevel past the next gym leader's ace, but I am going to be honest here. I started playing this game early and without any information, so there are just going to be moments where overleveling happens. So for this run, let's just let it slide a little bit. For future runs, we'll definitely be more strict about the rules. Now, starting off, I decide to do absolutely none of those storylines, and instead I run around the entire world to unlock every fast travel location that I can. I figure putting in work early would pay off later, and spoiler alert, I was very correct. You can access most of the world map without any story progression whatsoever, and while doing this, I caught a ton of Pokemon, so let's go over some of the greatest hits here. I caught a Knackley that I named Zach, a Cyclizar that I named Dragonzord, a Bramblin that I named Rita, a Capsicid that I named Aisha, a Wattrel I named Alpha, a Charcadet named Jason, a Tinkatink that I named Kimberly, and finally a Mankey that I named Billy. All of this exploration did have the unfortunate side effect of overleveling Sprigatito for the first gym, since he hit level 16 and just evolved into Florgato, but the first gym is bug type anyway, so probably not that big of a deal. Moving forward, I won't cover every single encounter or Pokemon I catch because there are far too many for this run, but I'll try to introduce Pokemon as they're used at least. I know this only took minutes for you, but this was several hours for me, so finally we can go take on the first gym. In this region, you have to pass gym challenges in order to challenge the leader, and for this challenge, I have to roll this massive olive into a goal. I'm not sure what this has to do with Pokemon battling, but I cannot wait to watch speedrunners lose their minds and reset their entire run because of this fucking olive. It does not move predictably whatsoever. Also, is this just supposed to be combining as many Spanish culture things as possible? Like, the development team just had a meeting where they asked, what are they good at in Spain? What are they known for? And some random Game Freak intern just blurted out, out football and olives. So they went with it. Am I missing something? Whatever, onto the battle. The first gym leader is Katie, and she uses bug types. And as strong as we all know bug types are, let's cut to the chase a little bit. I lead off with Knackley into her cricket, and I use rock polish on the first turn. And after that, my little salt cube is able to outspeed and one-shot her cricket, the spider she sends in after, and then she sends in a Teddy Ursa. And at first I was incredibly confused, but after it terastallizes into a bug type, I get it. It doesn't go down with a single smackdown, but it can barely do any damage to Knackley, and we take it out on the next turn. I think having gym leaders terastallize off-type Pokemon to match their gym's type is really interesting and gives them a level of freedom in team building that we don't often see for gym leaders, so I'm into it. With the bugs crushed, we take our first badge and head directly to the second gym. No delays, we're doing these back to back. This gym test involves running around town and finding all these Sunflora who are cursed to forever run in some single-digit FPS number, so we find all the laggy flowers and head straight to Brassius, who uses grass types. I lead off with Charcadet into his Petalil, and on the first turn I terastallize him into a fire type and go for Fire Spin, which one-shots. Brassius then sends out Smoliv, but another Terra-boosted Fire Spin is another clean kill. Brassius sends out his ace, Sudowoodo, Terras into a grass type, outspeeds, and one-shots my Charcadet, which is not great. I send in Kimberly since she resists both grass and rock type attacks, but Draining Kiss does basically nothing, and Trailblaze is an easy two-shot, so I pivot out into Billy, who takes nothing from a rock slide coming in, but then dies to a follow-up Trailblaze, so once again, not great. I send in Trini, and just like my last two deaths, she goes down to a single Trailblaze, but there is a small silver lining here since our static activates and paralyzes this demon tree. I send out Tommy and have him set up a Hone Claw while the tree just keeps trailblazing, and now it's time to go full hacks mode, baby. We just start sending it with bites, and we end up getting one full paralysis and one flinch, which lets us actually fell the tree and end the slaughter of the second gym. That was brutal. I went from having a full team of bright-eyed newcomers to almost wiping in a single battle. Honestly, I appreciate the curveball of Sudowoodo here because it offers a different strategy, and coming up with ways to beat difficult teams is probably my favorite part of these challenges, but still, that sucked. With badge 2 down, I realized I could have just evolved my Capsicid by finding a Firestone, which probably would have saved my entire team, but you know, you win some, you lose 3 innocent Pokemon sometimes. Also, I'm just now realizing that my Wooper died at some point, and I don't have the footage for it, and I don't remember how it died, but I know 100% that it died. So yeah, we've had 4 deaths this run. Wooper's dead. I don't remember how that happened. We make our way over to the first Titan fight where we'll be helping Arvin beat down some absolute units, and our first victim is this massive Cloth. But I think I must be overleveled for this fight because Florgato just wipes the floor with this rock crab during the first fight and then does it again after it powers up from ingesting some hallucinogenics. Beating the Titan crab does give me the sick ability to ride on my motorcycle Pokemon faster, so that's pretty neat at least. I then decide to do a bit more exploring, just picking up items, and I find this sick ass new Tauros who is a water fighting type variant, so I immediately catch him and name him Goldar. It's finally time to try the new Team Star raid battles, which an anonymous hacker named Cassiopeia had introduced us to earlier. So we head to the first one where we are greeted by this hip young student named Clive, who is definitely not the headmaster of Pokewarts University. In this base, the Team Star members use dark type Pokemon, and while the actual raid portion of this encounter is interesting in concept, it's maybe not fleshed out all that well. It consists of using the first 3 Pokemon in your party to get 30 knockouts using the new auto battle feature, and honestly, it feels unlosable, and 10 minutes is way too long of a timer for this. But then we have to fight the Team Star leader of this base, Giacomo, and look, I got kinda caught up in how dope I thought this new Tauros form was that I decided to use it, completely overlooking the fact that it was aggressively overleveled here. Goldar kinda made this fight a breeze, but to be fair, I could have caught one of the basic fighting type Tauros or even a Flamigo and made this fight a joke either way. Also, definitely catch Flamigo for your Nuzlocke. That's a Pokemon that would have made my second gym a joke, and I just completely whiffed on it because I hadn't found one yet. So anyway, Tauros blasts through Giacomo's Pawniard and then his actual vehicle because all Team Star leaders fight with a fucking car for some reason, and we get our first Team Star badge. And because of some weird code Team Star decided upon over a year ago, he has to step down from his role as a leader. Then that awkward girl Penny from earlier shows up and gives us some supplies and unlocks more TMs for us to craft. And that's it. These are the 3 storylines and the basic gameplay loop of the Paldea region, so let's crush the rest of the run. With new level caps, Tinkatink evolves into Tinkatuff, Knackley evolves into something surely inspired by Minecraft, and Bramblin evolves into a bigger tumbleweed, which is actually pretty sick. Now we can head straight to the next town with the gym, which in this case is Lavencia. We have to battle Nimona before challenging the gym leader, and this isn't even part of the gym challenge. It's just a required battle literally right as you walk in the gym. Okay, Sure, it's not a hard fight. Knacklestack easily takes out her Rockruff and Pommy with Bulldoze, and then Dragonzord is able to tank and take out her Duck, but it is enough experience to force some of my Pokemon to level, which is bad because it technically puts me over the level cap for this gym, but it's also good because Wattrel can evolve into Kilowattrel. After beating Nimona, we have to play a rousing round of Where's Waldo to earn the right to challenge the gym leader, and turns out she's a content creator, dude. Like, she just makes content. She's streaming when we challenge her. This is very meta and out of pocket at the same time, but I kind of love it. We challenge Iono and lead with Zack the Knacklestack into her Wattrel, and Knacklestack easily tanks a couple sparks and takes the bird out with a Salt Cure. Iono sends out Bellybolt next, so I pivot into Bramblegast, and we just slog at each other back and forth with Bullet Seed and Sparks until I finally win the damage race and the friend-shaped frog goes down. Luxio comes out next, but my Tumbleweed is just too damaged to stay in, so we switch into Scovillain, who takes a soft bite, then set up Sunny Day as she takes another soft bite. A flamethrower on the next turn absolutely obliterates the electric cat, forcing Iono to switch into her ace, Mismagius. This is really the first very clever use of the terrestrialization mechanic, because once Mismagius terras into an electric type with Levitate, she now has 0 weaknesses. I stay in with Scovillain knowing a flamethrower will do massive damage in the sun, but the Mismagius confuses our peppers and they hit themselves in confusion. From this spot, I don't want to take unnecessary damage, so I switch into Kilowattrel, who takes a pretty strong Hex, and after realizing I have no moves to damage the ghost since it resists both of my attacks, I switch into Dragonzord, who is really the perfect counter here. Normal dragon typing leaves him immune to Hex and resistant to Charge Beam, and his speed plus taunt stop the Mismagius from using Confuse Ray, so after a few turns of Terra boosted breaking swipes, Dragonzord takes the Mismag out, securing me the 3rd gym badge of my journey. With the 3rd badge, it's time to tackle the next Titan fight, which is just this massive bird. And once again, I feel like I'm maybe a little overleveled here because Knacklestack just plows through this thing. I don't think the fight would have been particularly hard because Salt Cure is just a bonkers good attack, but it felt just a little too easy. Then again, that really might just be how good Knacklestack is. After shooting the bird out of the sky, we find out that Arven is going around beating up on these Titans to collect drugs so he can heal his sick doggo, which is very endearing, and now I am suddenly invested in his story despite his whiny nature. This Titan fight also unlocks our motorcycle Pokemon swimming abilities, and I just happen to be in need of some water types right now. So I go catch a Finizen and name him Billy since the original Billy was taken from us far too soon. I catch a Wiglet that I name Putty, and I immediately evolve them into, and I cannot believe this name is coming out of my mouth right now, I evolve them into a Wugtrio. Oh man, Pokemon, what are you doing?
What the hell is even that?
With my new water type team members, I feel comfortable taking on the fire team Starbase. The raid part is once again very simple, and honestly, so is the actual battle versus Mela. I lead off with my water bull into her Torkoal, and after using Rain Dance to get rid of the sun it sets up, I'm able to switch around a little bit, first into Knacklestack to use Salt Cure, then to Wugtrio to take the tortoise out with a water pulse. She then gets into the zone, auto zone that is, and goes on the offensive with her actual car once again. Thankfully, Tauros is able to come back out and pretty easily drop it with a few Aqua Jets, meaning we have now totaled 2 vehicles in this game, which if I'm doing my math correctly, is an all-time high number of car crashes in a Pokemon game. After taking Mela's badge and running into Penny again, my team and I head to the next Titan fight, which is this really goofy looking worm. It's massive, it looks kind of dumb, and most importantly, I love it. We challenge it and Tauros just mows it down for the first part of the fight, but then like all Titans, it does some drugs and gets stronger. But Arven shows up to help out once again, which I cannot overstate here, is actually really helpful in these fights because he normally acts as a damage sponge. With Arven's help, Tauros is able to trample the roid-raged Alaskan bullworm back into the earth, and we get another cutscene where Arven's Mabostiff is slowly but surely getting better, which I love. Before heading to the next challenge, I decide I want one of those dumb-looking worms for myself, so I catch one and name her Megazord. Our next challenge is the Water-type gym in Koskaratha, and it's looking to be our hardest challenge yet. We have to run a few errands and buy some black market substances for the gym leader, but after that we challenge Kofu, and our Kilowattrel is really strong and fast enough to outpace every one of Kofu's Pokemon and one-shot all of them. The Veluza, the Wugtrio, the ugly-ass crab, they all go down to 1 Terra boosted Thunderbolt each. It's a really simple gym. I baited you when I said it was gonna be hard. I'm sorry, I'm just feeling like a little bit of a trickster. Our next raid is the Poison Team Starbase, and I don't have the best Pokemon to take this on, so I go catch a Girafarig, name her Cat, and then immediately evolve her into, and once again, I cannot believe this name is coming out of my mouth, a Farigiraf. And now it's time to raid. I make it through the first part easily enough since I have a couple of steel types in my new psychic giraffe, but the team star leader actually looks insane. We challenge Atticus after wiping the floor with his goons, and I lead off with Farigiraf into his skunk tank, mostly because I forgot to switch the order of my team up, but it's fine since I can just freely switch into Orthworm, and now all skunk tank has to hit me with is Sucker Punch. I go for a dig on the next turn and take the punch, which does a little bit more damage than I'm comfortable with, so I start switching around. First into Tinkatuff, who also takes a little too much from a Sucker Punch, and then I decide to just keep switching until Sucker Punch is out of PP. I finally send Orthworm back in and just freely take the skunk out with bulldozes. Revavroom comes out next, which is an odd sight because now there is a car battling on top of a car, but it can't do much to Orthworm either, so once again I take it out with a few bulldozes. Atticus sends out Muck, his last non-vehicular Pokemon, so I switch back and forth between Tink and Orthworm, forcing Muck to heal me to full with Earth Eater since it will only go for Mud Slaps on my steel types. Orthworm takes out the Muck over the next few turns, and Atticus follows in Team Star fashion by trying to commit vehicular homicide with his car. I stay in with Orthworm at first and start going for digs, but this juiced up Revavroom knows Flame Charge, so I'm put in a really weird spot. I switch into Cyclizar, who resists the incoming Flame Charge, and attempt to Shed Tail on the next turn, but I completely forgot about the Flame Charge speed boost, so it outpaces and connects with its signature move Noxious Torque that drops Cyclizar well under half, meaning I can no longer Shed Tail out. I switch into Zac hoping Assault Cure will chip the vehicle down, but that does not work in these fights, and Zac takes way too much damage from a spin out. So it's into Cat, who manages to get off a single Twin Beam before having to switch out her feint, and I decide to bring Orthworm back in. We get in for free on a Noxious Torque and trade digs and flame charges until I have to switch out, and finally I send in Tauros, who takes nothing from a flame charge, and 2 Aqua Jets is enough to clean up the fight. Okay, this fight was brutal and actually pretty close. We got it done with no casualties, but look at how damaged my team is after the fact. It would have been insanely easy for something to have died here, so I'm glad we made it out. After some leveling for the next gym, Florgato finally evolves into his final form, Meowscarada, and I love this Pokemon. Grass starters stay winning, but this is 100% in the running for best grass starter line ever. With my team leveled up, we head straight to the normal type gym, and there is supposed to be some kind of challenge associated with it, and I don't know if I got super lucky or if you can't answer wrong here, but I answered a few questions and then they just let me fight Larry. And if we can take a moment here to appreciate Larry, that would be fantastic. He's such a normal dude just working as a gym leader for a living, and I love it. I lead off with Cyclizar into his Kamala and Shed Tail out on the first turn into Rocky, which is a Flamigo that I caught just recently, even though you can catch this at the very beginning of the game. Seriously, this bird would have murdered early, and I cannot stress that enough. I should have had this the entire time. The Koala breaks my Flamingo sub, but we take it out with a single double kick in return. The Dunsparce comes out next, and as a quick side note, this is the best evolution any Pokemon has ever gotten, ever, period. A double kick drops it below half, while a Hyper Drill drops Flamigo to under half, but another 1-2 kick finishes the Dunsparce off and forces Larry into his Ace Staraptor. I switch into Kilowattrel, not wanting Flamigo to take an Aerial Ace, and after his speech and some weird stretching, he tears his bird into a normal type, hits a soft Aerial Ace, and on the next turn, my bird cracks back with a strong Volt Switch into Orthworm, who's able to soak up any hit Staraptor can dish out. So we chip it down over the next few turns with a couple of Terra boosted Iron Heads, winning ourselves the 5th badge. With our new level cap, both Knacklestack and Finizen evolve into Garganacl and Palafin respectively. Also shout out to Papa C, I had to join his world and level up Finizen while we were adventuring together because that's the only way you can evolve Finizen into Palafin, which is a very arbitrary evolution condition, but at least this proves I have one friend. With a couple new evolutions on my team, we head straight to the next gym. This fight is against Rhyme, who is a dope-ass SoundCloud rapper type beat gym leader, and this battle is a double battle which is kind of complex to narrate, so let me break it down simply. I lead off with Palafin and Garganacl on the first turn. Palafin gets so much stronger when it switches out, and thanks to Garganacl's great ability and stellar defensive stats, he can just sit in front of Rhyme's ghosts while wearing them down with Salt Cures. I flip turn Palafin out into Cyclizar and start Salt Curing Rhyme's ghost with Garganacl, and on the next turn, I Shed Tail back into Palafin, who is now transformed into its hero form. I use the turn behind the sub to set up a bulk up, and from this position, thanks to the boost the crowd gives you by cheering, Palafin's boosted Jet Punches combined with the Salt Cure chip are enough to just pick off all of Rhyme's Pokemon, even one-shotting her Ace Toxtricity before it can even move. So we win the rap battle, the Pokemon battle, and are now the #1 SoundCloud rapper ourselves in the Paldea region, which is dead ass fire, no cap. How painfully obvious is it that I'm in my 30s? Okay, moving on. The 4th Titan battle is next on the radar, so I head to the Mojave Desert, or whatever this place is called, and challenge Iron Treads. I know a lot of people love Great Tusk more than this, but I think this is such a dope Donphan variant, and it's part of the reason I decided to play Violet. I could go turn by turn here, but basically for both fights, I maneuver into hero form Palafin with Cyclizar and just shred the digital elephant down. Palafin is really very strong, and it's a Pokemon I find incredibly fun to use because you have to switch around to get it in. After beating the Titan, Arven finds more drugs once again, and his damage dog gets slowly better. Heartwarming. Tinkaton evolves into Tinkaton shortly after, which is great because this Pokemon has pretty bad stats, but an excellent typing and a great move pool, so it's actually very good for the late game. On our way to fight the 7th gym, we're challenged by Nemona, and honestly, she interrupts us too many times. I think I've skipped at least 2 of her other fights. Let's just speedrun this one. Meowscarada kills everything, the end. The 7th gym test is kind of goofy and involves tapping into our own extrasensory perception or something, but mostly we just make goofy faces. We challenge the leader Tulip, and listen, I don't always have a crush on Pokemon characters, but something about Tulip just hits different. If you look like this, do not DM me because I'm happily married, but you should definitely cosplay as Tulip. I challenge her and lead off with Meowscarada, who got a little over-leveled in the gym challenge and Nemona fight, but again, I wasn't working with exact level caps, so we just went with it. I don't think it really mattered because Tulip doesn't have a single grass resist, so a crit Night Slash was able to take out her Farigiraf, and then 2 Terra boosted crit Flower Tricks are enough to decimate her Gardevoir and a Spothra respectively. Her Florges comes out and Terra's into a Psychic type, and it actually manages to live the first Flower Trick and crack back with an incredibly strong Moonblast, but my cat lives without using one of its 9 lives and finishes off her flower by offering it a very tricky flower on the next turn, winning us our 7th badge. We're getting super close to the end now, kind of. I think there's still around 69 important battles to cover or something in that neighborhood after the 7th badge, so buckle up and let's finish the game strong. I decide to just back-to-back the 7th and 8th gyms and head directly to the Ice Gym, where the gym test is riding our Miraidon down an icy hill. Neat. We pass the test and head straight in and challenge Grusha, and I lead off with Tauros into his Frostmoth, but I'm not sure why I did this because it is not an ideal lead. So on the first turn, we switch directly into Garganacl as Frostmoth sets up a Tailwind. The Moth then hits a Raw Blizzard, which does well over half of Garganacl's HP, so I'm forced to switch out after setting up Stealth Rocks. I send out Palafin, who deftly dodges a Blizzard, then double into Tinkaton, who is able to eat up a Bug Buzz, and then on the next turn take the Moth out with a Gigaton Hammer. Grusha sends in Beartic, so I hard switch into Tauros to get the Intimidate while also eating up an Earthquake, then double switch into Palafin once again, and from this spot, it's pretty easy to set up bulk ups, and a flurry of boosted Drain Punches are enough to finish off Grusha's team while my Dolphin stays healthy with the passive recovery. Thanks to the Stealth Rocks I set up early, none of his Pokemon even stood a chance at surviving here, making this an easy 8th badge, meaning we can now take on the Elite Four. Just not really yet, because like I said, we have a ton of battles left, so let's get those out of the way first. Knowing what the next few boss battles are, I catch a Varoom named Zed and evolve them into a Revaroom, and after that I catch a Glimmet that I name Ooze and evolve him into a Glamora. Then I'm looking around for some raid dens to battle and get experience candy, and I find my first full odd shiny of Gen 9. It's this goofy little red shrimp, and I can't use it because it's not a Paldean Pokemon, but Clauncher has such a cool shiny, so I'm stoked I found this little dude. With my team juiced up, I head to the Fairy type Starbase, and as always, the raid portion is so easy, so I stomp a bunch of grunts into the ground and then challenge Ortega, which I think is a brand of Mexican-American food that I buy at the store sometime. Like, I think I buy Ortega brand salsa once in a while. I don't know, that's not really the point. He leads off with an Azumarill, and I lead off with Revavroom. I go for a Shift Gear on turn 1, trying to set up and sweep, as the Water Rabbit hits my car for a good chunk with an Aqua Tail. On the next turn, Azu actually manages to live a boosted Poison Jab and drops Rev low, so I switch into Meowscarada to tank an Aqua Jet, but it just misses. Then double into Glamora, hoping I will bait out a Play Rough here, but instead the Azu just charms. From this spot, Glamora is a nightmare for Ortega. He finishes off Azu with an Acid Spray, sets up a Reflect on Wigglytuff before taking it out with a Sludge Wave, drowns the Dachshund in a wave of Sludge, and then Terras into a Poison type to total the Fairy type car with 2 boosted Sludge Waves. Glamora went so hard in this fight, and in this moment, it became one of my new favorite Pokemon. It's just such an interesting design, and I love its ability. Anyway, we learn more about the Team Star story. Penny shows up once again, as she has been this entire time, and now we can take on the final Team Star base. Before I do though, there is just an itch I've been really wanting to scratch. I would like a solid ghost type before fighting my next Team Starbase because I know that they use fighting types there. So I catch a Gimmighoul and then spend the next several hours of my life traveling to all the different spots where you can get Gimmighoul coins and finally evolve them into a Gholdengo. I name them Trey, and now we can head to the final Team Starbase. The raid goes smoothly as always, and at the end we're challenged by Aerie, and holy shit, she is terrifying. The face paint is just a little too much for me. We lead off with our golden string cheese boy into her Toxicroak and set up a substitute as it goes for a sucker punch, which fails. I then use recover to go back up to full health and continue using status moves so that all of the frog's punches fail until it's out of PP for sucker punch and I can safely take it out with a psychic. She sends in Lucario next, and a Shadow Ball does well over half before it breaks my sub with a Dark Pulse, and a second Shadow Ball takes it out, bringing out Annihilate. One of the most incredible new evolutions I think we've ever seen in a game. This time I'm not being sarcastic like I was with the Dunsparce. This Pokemon is actually amazing. I tear it into a ghost type for the Shadow Ball boost, but the ape manages to live in the low red but cracks back with a weak fire punch, making it an easy KO on the next turn. Passimian is her last Pokemon that is also not a car, so I take it out with a couple of psychics, forcing her into her ace, the actual car she is standing on. These fights are so goofy, but they're actually really hard. Thankfully, the Revavroom can't do any substantial damage to me, and I'm able to take it out over the next few turns with a flurry of psychics, winning me the final Team Star battle and prompting Cassiopeia, the person who has been telling us to battle Team Star leaders this entire time, that it's finally time to meet them. And in a shocking twist, they are the leader of Team Star. We'll put that story on hold for now and wrap it up later because we have to finish the final Titan fight. Cassiroya Lake, also known as You Will Lag Your Assiroya Off Lake, is the location for the final Titan encounter. So we make our way there, and as it turns out, the final Titan is this little fish that then gets swallowed by a much bigger fish, and you fight them like a grand total of 4 times. I'm gonna skip to the final Dondozo fight here, which was a breeze because of Meowscarada, and then Dondozo spits up the Tatsugiri, and as it turns out, Meowscarada also has an appetite for sashimi because he decimates this part of the fight as well. It's really uneventful, so we'll skip the turn by turn and just know that I wrecked these 2 fish. What is important is finally Arven has found enough drugs to fully heal his dog in a very precious cutscene, but then his daddy ruins it by phoning in and saying we need to go to his lab for one reason or another, and also Arven wants to fight me. But once again, we'll pick up that part of the story later because now it's actually time for the Elite Four. In this Elite Four, since you can access your boxes whenever, you can entirely change your team in between battles, which is something I let myself do during this run, but after thinking about it, I probably won't do again. It ruins the idea that the Elite Four is a singular gauntlet that you have to complete in its entirety, so just a heads up on that one before we get into it. I at least decide to start with a team of Palafin, Cyclizar, Gholdengo, Tinkaton, Meowscarada, and Orthworm though, because all of these Pokemon are individually very strong. You can also see a lot of the Pokemon that I caught but never really got used. You just have access to so many good Pokemon in this game, so I never felt pressured to use anything truly janky. To get into the Elite Four, you have to answer a quiz, and no lie, I failed the first time because I could not remember the name of the academy my character is attending. But don't worry, we made it in on the second try. The first member of the Elite Four is Rika, and she's a ground type specialist, so I decided to lead off with Palafin into her Wish Cache and flip turn out into Meowscarada, who eats up an Earth Power and completely gutters the fish on the next turn with a Flower Trick. Camera Up comes out next, so I U-turn back into Palafin, who dodges a Fire Blast thanks to my shout. Eesh, I did not know at this time that making sandwiches boosted your Pokemon's hacks rating, which is unfortunate because a lot of my late game training was making normal sandwiches and grinding on Chansey, so I'm sorry, there isn't much I can do about this now, but dodging a Fire Blast with my Palafin certainly didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but I'll try to call it out when it does. Palafin easily bops Rika's Camera Up, Donphan, and Doug Trio, but then she sends out her ace Clodsire, and thanks to Water Absorb and me forgetting to give Palafin Ice Punch, I could not touch this Mudfish. So I switch into Orthworm, who is immune to everything that Clodsire can do except Liquidation, but I don't really want to slowly chip the Clawd down, so I Shed Tail into Meowscarada, who's able to come in and claim another soul with Flower Trick. It might not normally kill since Clodsire is part poison, but it terrestrializes into a pure ground type, and Flower Trick is an overtuned move, so we win the first Elite Four battle. Next up is a literal child who uses only steel types, but she also only has one special attacker on her whole team, so I'm able to just lead off with Orthworm, get to +6 defense with Iron Defense, and then body press her entire team into oblivion. I really thought this fight might be kind of rough since steel types are normally great, but it was incredibly easy, and Orthworm ended the fight only missing like 11 HP. Seriously, this Pokemon is actually absolutely goated. The next Elite Four member is revealed to be Larry, which is the best thing I could have asked for. Larry is seriously the most chill and business-oriented gym leader and Elite Four member ever. He's just concerned about his career, and I respect that in a guy. I lead off with Cyclozar and his Tropius, and an Ice Spinner on the first turn leaves his banana dinosaur with just a sliver as it sets up the sun. On the next turn, I click shift gear and try to set up, but Tropius gets a crit Dragon Pulse for way too much damage. Cyclozar finishes the walking banana hammock off on the next turn, prompting Larry into Staraptor. I cannot risk missing the one-shot and Cyclozar going down here, so I pivot into Goldango, who is immune to the incoming close combat, and on the next turn, Gold actually outspeeds, and a Make It Rain is a clean one-shot. Altaria is up next, so I bring in Palafin just to switch out in case it needs to come back in and be a hero, but I pivot into Glamora, who is able to cleanly one-hit KO Larry's Altaria and Oricorio with a Power Gem, prompting Larry to send in his ace, the Demon Flamigo itself. So I switch into Palafin, who takes an incredibly strong close combat on the way in, but on the next turn we Terrastalize to boost water type attacks, and that boost coupled with a defense drop from close combat is enough to take Flamigo out cleanly with the priority Jet Punch. Only one Elite Four member remains, and it turns out to be our art teacher Hassel. He uses exclusively dragon types, but we'll see how he feels after I'm done exclusively dragging these nuts across his forehead. Okay, cheap shot and not really a good joke, but it's a segue into the battle. I lead off with Glamora into his Noivern, and on the first turn I set up Stealth Rocks because they look fantastic in this match, and the Bat Dragon just Hyper Fangs. Next turn, a Power Gem is enough to grab the KO, bringing in Dragalge. It should go for Hyper Pump here, so I switch into Billy, and it does go for the pump, but we naturally dodge it anyway. I flip turn for a little bit of chip damage into Cyclozar, who cleanly takes a Thunderbolt, then a Shed Tail lets me get in Tinkaton behind a sub for free on a Dragon Pulse. A Fake Out plus a Gigaton Hammer are enough to take the Dragalge down without even being touched, and Haxorus comes out next. I play rough into it for a ton of damage as it breaks my sub with an Iron Head, and a second play rough on the following turn takes it out, bringing in Flapple. A third play rough leaves the Apple Dragon in the red, and it barely scratches Tink with a Seed Bomb, and one attack later, Hassel is down to just his ace, the new pseudo-legendary Bexcalibur. It Terrastalizes into a pure Dragon type, which I forgot that it was going to do, so I go for a Gigaton Hammer, which doesn't do much damage, and it gets a really strong Brick Break off. But on the next turn, I make the correct play and Terrastalize into a Fairy type, and drop the Bexcalibur with a boosted play rough, meaning we've beaten the entire Elite Four and just have to face the champion now. We make our way to the roof and encounter the top champion Gita, but she's about to become the bottom champion, if you know what I mean. No, wait, that didn't come out right. I just mean I'm gonna win, okay? I challenge her and lead off with Palafin into her Espathra because, as usual, I want him to be able to go from 0 to hero at a moment's notice. I flip turn into Goldango as she sets up a Reflect, and on the next turn I just drop the bird with a Shadow Ball after taking a light tap from a Lumina Crash. She sends in Avalugg as a replacement, and I see an opportunity here. So I switch into Earthworm on its Earthquake, and from this spot, I'm able to fully set up with Iron Defense while staying healthy because of my leftovers, and Body Press just rocks Avalugg, Veluza, King Gambit, and Go-Goat, all Pokemon who were physical attackers, and Earthworm is still well above half health when Glamora comes in. Now this Glamora's moveset is Terra Blast, Earth Power, Sludge Wave, and Dazzling Gleam. All moves Earthworm is either immune to or resists, so I stay in and click Body Press one final time for the derpiest sweep of my career, and this dumbass Flower Rock gets a miracle crit Terra Blast, which is just enough to KO Earthworm. I'm heated. I'm pissed. Just when I fell in love with this Pokemon and realized how good it is in the right matchups, a stray crit ends her career? Unforgivable. I bring in Meowscarada to replace my fallen wormy friend, and out of pure spite, have him Terra into a grass type and use a Terra boosted flower trick to absolutely obliterate this rock. I did calcs before deciding on this move to see what gave me the absolute most damage, and this was by far the biggest overkill. Rest in pieces, Glamora. But as a silver lining, with that final KO, we've beaten the champion of the region and the Nuzlocke. At least that's what I would normally say, but there are still several hours of gaming left to beat this game, so let's get to it. Now I know I've gently reminded you of this several times through the playthrough, but please keep in mind I was still unsure of level caps at this time, so I will be over them at times for these upcoming battles. For future Nuzlockes, that won't be an issue, so just bear with me on this one. First, we head to Messagoza, the place where it all started, and we're challenged by Nemona, the fight that is actually the end to the Victory Road storyline. I lead off with Palafin into her Lycanroc and flip turn out, doing about 75% as it sets up Stealth Rocks. Gholdengo comes in next, and I forget how fast this wolf is because it outpaces and lands a super strong drill run for over half of Gold's HP before I take it out with a Shadow Ball. Orthworm comes out next, rubbing salt in my freshly opened wound, and I want to gauge its earthquake damage, so I have Gold recover back up to full, and the incoming earthquake still does more than I'm comfortable with. So I switch into Tauros on the next turn to get off an Intimidate, meaning he's able to start setting up bulk ups while taking very little damage. After Tauros sets up 2 bulk ups, I take out the Orthworm with a Raging Bull, and Pneumonia sends out her Pawmot because of the type advantage. But since Tauros has boosted defense, he is actually able to live a double shock, which is wild because that attack is incredibly strong, and then takes the Pawmot out with another Raging Bull. Dunsparce comes out next, and Tauros one-bangs it with a close combat and gets one of those annoying friendship crits. I don't think the crit ever mattered here because we're at +2 and it's a stab super effective base 120 power attack, but you know, just figured I would mention it. Goodra comes out and also falls to a close combat. Then Nemona sends out her ace Quaquaval, and based on a rough calc, it looks like close combat has around a 93% chance to kill. So I go for it, but the duck lives with just a sliver and then retaliates with an aerial ace, taking out, nope, never mind. The dumb sandwich power kicks in and saves Tauros, which is incredibly annoying, but it's not like this duck would have ever swept from this position. Tauros outspeeds and drops the dancing duck on the next turn, wrapping up the Victory Road portion of the game. Side note, in the future, I would 100% count this as a death, but honestly, I had the flu when I was playing through the end part of the game and probably wasn't the most clear-headed, so just know I use Tauros a lot going forward, even though I should have put him in the deaded box. That's my mistake, but I don't believe it fundamentally changes the outcome of the run. My team is decidedly cracked at this point. Anything I did with Tauros could have also been accomplished with a different Pokemon. I just really like the Propeller Tail Bull, and once again, wasn't thinking super straight. Next, I decide to clean up the Team Star portion of the game where we're confronted by Clive, who was secretly Director Clavel all along. No one could have guessed this, and with a twist like that, I'm pretty sure they have M. Night Shyamalan on the writing team. What a twisty twist! He also reveals himself to be Cassiopeia, the leader of Team Star, and challenges us. Another twist! He leads off with the Rongaroo, and I can never really be bothered to lead off with anything other than Palafin, so a flip turn on the first turn does a good chunk of damage, and I bring out Meowscarada, who takes a yawn. Not out of pivoting moves, my cat U-turns on the following turn to take the orangutan out, and I bring in Gholdengo as Clavel sends in Gyarados. I don't really care for this matchup, so I switch Gholdengo into Tauros on an Earthquake for an Intimidate drop, then double back into Meowscarada to eat up another Earthquake. 2 Flower Tricks are enough to take the Gyarados out, but a Stone Edge leaves my cat under half health. So when Abomasnow comes in, I once again U-turn out, doing a ton of damage, and bring in Tinkaton, who takes a soft Blizzard. Gigaton Hammer crushes the tree on the next turn, bringing out Clavel's Poltegeist, who takes a ton from Play Rough, but then misses a Will-O-Wisp. It lands its Will-O-Wisp on the next turn, but still falls to a Gigaton Hammer and is replaced by Among Us. I switch into Cyclizar, who gets in for free on a Hex, and I was able to Shed Tail out into Gholdengo, who also gets in for free on a Spore. I use the turn behind the sub to Nasty Plot, then Make It Rain clean one-shots the Mushroom on the following turn. Clavel is down to his final Pokemon Skeleridge, which I did not think about him terastallizing into a fire type, so I stay in with Gholdengo and go for a Shadow Ball, which because of the type change, does not KO. The Lava Croc goes for a boosted Torch Song, and once again, I live because of the bogus Friendship Focus Sash. Again, didn't think about how this should be a KO at the time, so I keep using String Cheese Boy, but I can't go back and change it now. In the future, I'm not going to make sandwiches with party members, and that's just that. Anyway, Gholdengo outspeeds and rocks Skeledirge on the next turn, meaning I have now finally beaten the Team Star boss. Okay, no, never mind. He lied about that. He's not the Team Star boss. We got twists on twists on twists now. So we have to fight the real Team Star boss, who is revealed to be Penny, the nerd from the beginning of the game who has also been checking in with us every time we beat a Team Star base. Say it with me. What a twist. She tells us she made the plans to end Team Star a year ago because they were all going to get kicked out of school, and it was really just a group made up of outcasts who banded together to not be such losers. I don't know. Honestly, the storyline is a little convoluted and probably the weakest in the game, but even it still has its moments. She uses a team of all evolutions, and while I could see this being a really tough fight in certain monotype runs, it is very easy here since each evolution basically only does one thing, so we'll just speedrun it. Tinkaton dumpsters Umbreon with Play Roughs, Palafin gets in again with a shed tail from Cyclizar and body bags Flareon. He also body bags Jolteon with a priority jet punch. Leafeon falls to a U-turn from Meowscarada. Vaporeon gets flower tricked into an early grave, and finally, Terra boosted flower trick is enough to end Penny's career by also taking out her Sylveon. So we now beat Starfall Street properly, and it has a happy ending where all of the Team Star losers get to keep being losers together, and they're just doing it for the school now. And Penny also gets a job at the school because she's a super lead hacker girl. Next, we meet up with Arven at his dad's old lab that has been mysteriously locked ever since his dad abandoned him to explore a big hole years ago. We learn a lot about Arven's parental trauma here, and we unlock and explore Toro's lab only for him to contact us and tell us we now need to meet him in the big hole he abandoned his family for years ago. Sure, Arven decides to test our strength even though we're the only reason he was able to find enough illegal drugs to heal his sick dog. And listen, this fight is also kind of boring. I shed tail out on the first turn into Tauros, set up some bulk ups, and then proceed to one-shot Arven's entire team. Even the recently sick dog we just helped get better. Yeah, we crushed him. Also, before anyone says anything, I could have accomplished this exact same sweep with Fulmigo or Palafin. Arven's team is just terrible against fighting and water types. But yeah, Tauros should have been dead. I know, I get it. Let's just move on from this fact. So with that, we wrap up the final storyline and beat the game. Alert! Alert! No, f you, bonus storyline. We have to go explore the crater with all of our new friends, the emo loner, the brave girl, and the lead hacker girl. Let's go. This game does not end. So we descend into the crater, fight some robotic ass looking Pokemon, and then find out that Arven's dad has been dead this whole time, and we've been communicating with an AI of his dead dad, which is goofy, but actually a very effective twist in my opinion. So long story short, we have to fight Arven's AI dad, not his dead dad, and beat him because he's the final security system, and if we don't shut him down, more robotic ass Pokemon revealed to be from the future will keep time traveling to our time. And actually, I really dig this story, and we'll talk about it after we defeat AI Toro. He challenges us, and we lead off with Palafin into his Iron Moth, which holy shit, I did not look up this fight. This is a very strong lead for him. I go for a flip turn as per usual, but the Moth outpaces us and lands a discharge that paralyzes us, and we get fully paralyzed on the first turn. Not cash money at all. I hard switch out into Cyclizar on the next turn, and the Moth does not go for a discharge. It goes for Sludge Wave, which leaves us in low orange health and poisons. Absolutely fantastic. I have to sacrifice something here, so I have Cyclizar use Dragon Claw, which does a little bit under half, and then he goes down to another Sludge Wave. Rest in peace, buddy. You did a lot of pivoting for us, and you were an incredibly important member of this team. I send Tauros in and take a strong discharge, but I'm able to pick up the KO after with a Raging Bull. Thankfully, we dodged the para this time, or the Moth might have just swept my entire team. Iron Bundle comes out next, so I switch into Tinkaton on a Freeze Dry, and Fake Out plus Giga Hammer into Protect into another Gigaton Hammer are enough to take out the Cyborg Delibird before it can do any real damage to my team. Iron Thorns is up next, so I switch into Meowscarada, who does the cringy friendship dodge thing, taking no damage from an Earthquake, but we always would have lived it anyway. On the next turn, we take out Iron Thorns with the Flower Trick, bringing out Iron Jugulus. I do not have fantastic Pokemon against this thing, so I have Meowscarada U-turn into Palafin, getting off some solid damage on the way out, and Palafin manages to live the incoming Air Slash and get off one final Jet Punch, dropping Jugulus to low red before going down. I really cannot overemphasize how much I enjoyed using the combination of Cyclizar and Palafin during this run, so these two deaths really sting. Tinkaton comes back out and finishes off the Hydra with a Fake Out, prompting AI Toro to send in Iron Hands next, and we get a strong play rough off on it, but it undoes a ton of that damage with the Drain Punch and almost takes Tink out. So I switch into Goldango on the next turn, wanting to preserve Fake Out pressure for the future. We get him for free on a Drain Punch and set up a nasty plot, not taking too much from a Thunder Punch, and drop the Iron Hands on the next turn with a Shadow Ball. Turo sends out his ace, Iron Valorant, who gets an attack boost with its booster energy when it enters the battlefield. But this Pokemon does not have a single attack that hits Goldango for even neutral. So we stay in, take a soft Spirit Break, and then in one final glorious burst of gold, take the Iron Valorant out with a Make It Rain. The final cutscenes play, and Arven finally catches up to us and realizes this isn't his father, but an AI created to replicate his father. AI Toro tells Arven that his father would have been so proud of him. Then, to save our present, travels through the portal to the future to close it, and in one moment, Arvin has lost his father and the only remaining connection to his father, and I'm not gonna lie, I cried. Not to end on a sad note here, but I also lost my dad when I was young, not to any cool time travel shenanigans, but to cancer. So daddy trauma in media always gets to me just a little bit. And I can officially say this is the first time a Pokemon game has ever made me cry, which is kind of a beautiful ending to this run. So we beat the game, save the world, and win the run. Barely. AI Toro almost tossed us. That fight was insane. I know this video is so late, but thank you for being patient with me, and if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. My family has had a really rough couple of months, and I've been sick in some form or fashion since Thanksgiving. Strep throat, the flu, a UTI, an upper respiratory infection, and then a sinus infection. It's been a lot, so thank you for hanging in there with me. These games are beautiful, and while they have their problems with performance, they're amazing in my opinion. This is the most fun I've had playing Pokemon in such a long time, and I have a lot of fun ideas for challenges in this region, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you're new here, because we're on our way to 100K, and I would love to hit that by my birthday. And also, don't forget to head on over to my second channel and check out the battling content I've been posting there. Okay, I'm kind of done here, and I have to leave, but I will see you again very, very soon. Maybe on a live stream. Bye.